What wasn't so clear was who the creative team were going to be on the production. It felt natural in some ways that Eileen, who was the director of the piece, would come in and work on this production because she had worked on two of our research projects.
I got involved with Resistance really through my contact with Maria. Maria and I have known each other for, I have to do a bit of maths here. Maria and I have known each other for 37 years.
It'd be more stooped and here. Yes. It's my own business, which is, I'm just really hammering Maria.
As for the other production team, well, some of them were people that Turtle Key knew, like Phil Supple, who worked on the lighting.
Phil Supple, lighting designer, a bald Caucasian man with a goatee beard.
So I was intrigued as to what I would learn about my process and how lighting works for audiences, rather than just creating a series of pictures and images of how that would, how my ordinary, my everyday method of working would match up to what I needed to produce.
And Tina Beaker, who was the costume designer, and other people were people that I had known from other strands of work, like Adrian Lee, who composed the music, and Andrea Carr, who was the set designer.
Andrea Carr, set designer, a Caucasian woman with long hair.
Shape, which can be adjusted depending on the size of the venue, which is composed of
there were
kind of sandbags
other
and rubble.
people
So
that
a bit like
I
a kind of a
knew
horizontal
from various
frame
other strands
on
of
the
work,
ground.
like Andrea Carr, who was a set designer. I've known her for a long time, and she's done an amazing body of work and had always expressed an interest in working with our company, and it was great to have her on board. And the other two significant people in the team were Adrian Trees, who was the choreographer, and Eileen and I both had worked with him in a completely different context, but found him to bring a real sensitivity and grace to his approach to working with movement and dance, and he indeed brought those qualities to the rehearsal process.
Aidan Triez, choreographer, a young Caucasian man wearing a grey cap.
I was interested in the project because of you telling me about the subject matter and hearing about the subject matter, and also having known that the work that you do with sort of visually impaired and blind actors, and being interested in that, and also I'm very interested in theatre, and also we had some common ground having worked together in the past, not on theatre work but in a sort of holistic sort of context, you know. So I was interested in that, and sort of just knowing you as a person was interested in what you were doing with your work.
The other person was Adrian Lee, who interestingly was the only other visually impaired member of the creative team. And again, both Eileen and I had met Adrian elsewhere, and I had got on very well with him because I'd mentioned the Jacques Lousseron book, and coincidentally he'd read it himself, completely separate to this project, and it had the same impact on him that it had had on me. So when I approached him and said, look, I'm really interested in creating a drama from this piece of work, are you interested in working with us on the music? He was really up for it, and he's got such an amazing kind of track record in working in theatre with the composition of music and sound design, that it was a real honour that he agreed to come and work with us on this show.
A female stage manager carries costumes in white plastic bags. She takes them through to a dressing room and hangs them on a clothes rail, smoothing them down. A lighting rig is raised. Phil Supple adjusts some lights. Ali is setting up the stage. Aidan dances with the actors. The company experience the model of the set. Eileen directs the younger Jacques. Maria in intense discussions in a corner. Ali describing while using big gestures. Male actors dancing together in rehearsals. Maria talks to actor playing older Jacques.
So that was the creative team.
What I needed to do was get a professional team together. It was very important that the artistic team were highly skilled in their field and very competent, because they were going to have new challenges to meet.
We had one very large production meeting about 3 or 4 weeks before the rehearsals started, and that brought all the creative team together to talk about sort of last minute things, I suppose, before we went into rehearsal. But prior to that, we'd had quite a few smaller meetings with different members of the creative team. Sometimes we would meet people on their own individually, sometimes in smaller groups of two or three. And over that period of time leading up to that big final production meeting, it really felt that there was a vision or a sort of overall idea in terms of its sort of quality and essence of the production that was coming together, that was formulating through these different conversations that we were having with different members of the team, about lighting, for instance, about how the set would work, how the music would work, and it was very exciting in a period where you're sort of bogged down with practicality. Suddenly you're having an inspirational conversation about the artistic side of it and what you might be creating that's quite new, and how to bring those effects together, and how you're say maybe even your parameters, I'm not going to say restrictions, but your parameters working with a visually impaired cast are going to affect some of the traditional maybe approaches to set building or lighting design or something, and how you can get through those things that working with a visually impaired cast will flag up to create possibly new ideas that you hadn't had before. All of that feels like an oasis of excitement, where within a period of time, you know, when you're kind of also bogged down with contracts and diaries and venues and all the rest of it. So that was what was going on leading up to rehearsal.